Welcome to Brian Keane Fitness Podcast, where we talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset with your host, Brian Keane.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Brian Keane Fitness Podcast. We talk everything fitness, nutrition and mindset to help you with your goals. So what we're going to talk about in today's episode is the different hacks that I've used to stay on track at weekends, as it's something that I suffered with for so long. Okay, the number one thing is going to be nutrition. So what I find with most people that I talk to about this topic, and I was the exact same, is nutrition's the number one thing that tends to fall off at the weekends. It's easy because you can kind of get your training sessions in. You can get up and do it first thing in the morning. I'll talk about that later on how to hack your weekends to actually get your training systems in, or to get your training sessions in. But in terms of nutrition, that tends to be the number one thing that most people fall off with. What I found for me was it was the lack of routine of getting up at the same time every day that really upset my entire day. So I used to get up during the week, especially when I was teaching, when I struggled with this the most, when I was working my normal teaching hours. I used to get up at 6:30, 7 o'clock every morning for work. And then the weekends I'd sleep until 9, 9:30 or 10. And so I found that I just didn't feel the same at weekends. So I'd miss meals. I'd either skip that meal or I'd have my breakfast and then miss a meal. And the whole day would seem out of track. I'd only get 2 meals in, or I'd have 2 meals and then I'd go for a night out and there'd be a 6-hour gap. And then I'd have, whatever I had at the end of the night in terms of food. So what I found has worked best for me and has worked best for people in my online program, because this is something that comes up with a lot of people, is whatever time you get up, try and keep your structure the same for the rest of the day, if at all possible, from your first meal. So what I found for me is getting up first thing in the morning, whether it's 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, 3 or 4 hours later than the weekday, having my first meal then, and then scheduling my rest of my day around that. So still trying to keep my 3-hour rule, where I'm eating every 2.5, 3 hours to keep my blood sugar level stable. What happens when you, at the weekends, when you start skipping meals, is you start to get your blood sugars all out of whack, in terms of your energy level doesn't be as stable because you're missing meals and your blood sugar levels are dropping, because you're keeping that steady all during the week by eating regularly, eating little and often, your training and everything is keeping blood sugar stable, whereas at the weekend that can go out of sync because you're going 3, 4, 5, 6 hours without meals. And I've done this, so I know exactly how it feels. And then what happens is you end up overeating at dinner time, you end up craving sugary and sweet foods because your blood sugars are out of balance and they're trying to get back into stable levels, and then you end up binge eating on certain foods. So the number one thing that I found has worked really well for me is first thing in the morning, regardless of what time I get up at, I try and have my first meal at that time, and then I'll try and schedule the rest of my day. So for the next 2.5, 3 hours, I will have my meals every 2.5, 3 hours for as long as I'm awake through that day. Sometimes it's not feasible because you're doing different things with family, you're doing different things with friends. So the other thing that I found has worked really well is just putting BCAAs into my water bottle and sipping on it through the day. What that does is it keeps blood sugar stable because it gives your body an amino acid source, it gives your body an energy source so that you have that blood sugar stabilization through the day and you don't get that massive sugar drop or blood sugar level drop that comes from missing 5-6 hours of meals when your body's used to having something every 2.5 or 3 hours. I found that was my most effective, particularly when I'm traveling places and I just can't bring my food with me, or else I'll have my bag of almonds or I'll have snacks with me, but I'll put BCAAs into my water bottle and I'll sip on it during the day, knowing that it's going to keep my energy level stable, knowing that it's going to keep my body ticking over in terms of blood sugars, and I'm not going to be binge eating later on that day because my blood sugars have dropped so low. The next thing is being a bit more flexible with terms of what meals you have and what time of the day you have them at weekends. What I found works really well for me during the week, Monday to Friday, is I'll have breakfast, 3 hours later I'll have a snack, then I'll have lunch, then I might have another snack, and then I'll have dinner, and then if I'm still hungry I'll have another snack before bed. So it works out really well during the week. But at the weekend, you don't have that same structure, that same work week, that same set lunch times or break times. And I find that at weekends, the best way to flip this is just to be a bit more flexible with how you space your meals. You may find at weekends you end up going breakfast, snack, dinner, and that works best for you because of you're on the go, or you're with family, or you're with friends, or you're meeting people, or you're out and about. That may be the best system for you, that you end up actually just snacking during the day and having things like almond or dark chocolate or Greek yogurt or whatever it is during the day, and you're having that all as your snacks, and then you're having your main meal later on that evening. That's what I found has worked really, really effectively for me, particularly when I travel, or if I'm out and about and I don't have access to a kitchen or my meals, I'll have my almonds, I'll have my dark chocolate, I'll have my protein powder, I'll have my travel foods with me. Or if I'm speaking on a Saturday, if I'm doing a talk with somebody or I'm at a seminar, I'll find that that's what I'll mainly do as opposed to bringing all my meals with me. And that tends to work into my schedule a lot better. And I found that people I've worked with in my online program, once they made that switch and they become more flexible, that you don't need to go breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then your snacks around it, you might have a better system just going snacks all through the day and then your breakfast in the morning and your main evening meal at night. And that allows you to stay on track with nutrition because it gives you a little bit of structure to the day. And the last thing in terms of nutrition, what I found has also helped massively for me is putting your training session in on a Saturday or Sunday or both days, and then just making sure you get your meals right around that. If you get your first meal of the day right, your breakfast, then you're going to get your pre-workout meal like an hour and a half, an hour, 2 hours before, depending on how fast you metabolize your meal. And then your post-workout meal, which will be an hour after, that's already 3 of your main meals. So if you're training at the weekend or you're doing a run or a cycle or a swim or a gym session, whatever that training looks like for you, you're going to be getting 3 of those meals in by purely getting your breakfast, your pre-workout meal or your post-workout meal. Or they could still double over, that if breakfast might be your pre-workout meal and then you have your post-workout meal after, that tends to give you a little bit of structure during the day. What happens at the weekend and what I fell victim to was just that genuine lack of structure. And that's how I found my meals went out the window, because I hadn't internalized it as a habit yet and I hadn't formed a new habit for the weekend. I had it so habit forming during the week, which I find a lot of people have, and then it's easier to stick to when you're used, well, I'm used to eating at this time and I'm used to having food at this time, I'm used to having dinner at this time, I'm used to having breakfast at this time during the week, and then that falls out of sync at the weekend. But you can build a new habit routine in at the weekend, and then that becomes your norm. Now what I do at the weekend and has worked for me is I've just created a new habit routine. I get up in the morning, I'll have my first meal, and then I'll eat every 2.5, 3 hours around that. Or if I've got football training, which is normally Saturday, or a game, I'll make sure that I've got my pre and post workout meals, which is 3 of my meals, and then I just snack around that or get meals around that depending on if it's a game or a training session that day. And nearly manipulating your own structure and routine is going to be the key to staying on track at the weekend in terms of nutrition. Okay, so the next thing is training. So that's going to be very much dependent on your lifestyle and schedule. Some people will take the weekend off. They'll train Monday to Friday or different days during the week and then take the weekend off. Other people love to get up first thing on a Saturday morning when they've got the most energy and smash out the training session fasted. Others will train Sunday evening so they don't get those Monday blues or have to worry about going back to work on Monday. So it really depends on each person whether you do a training session at the weekend. It's not about whether you train or not at the weekend. It's about getting your nutrition right around that. So as long as you're still spacing your pre and post workout meals, it's going to give you a little bit of structure at the weekends. I found for me personally, having one training day and normally a Saturday, whether that's GAA, whether that's a game or whether that's a gym session, I find having that training session on the Saturday allows me to structure my day better. I try not to do any work on a Saturday, so most of my Saturdays are spent with Holly and we either play, I'll spend time reading, or I'll do a training session, but it's trying to manifest and manipulate the weekend so that you create your own routine so that you don't fall off track. So I find for me, training on Saturday gives me a lot of routine, and then I know on Sunday I'm going to take a rest. And so I've built in a different training or a different routine on a Sunday. So my routine on a Sunday is just getting my meals in every 3 hours. I literally have to time it when I get up first thing in the morning. I normally wake about 9 a.m. on a Sunday. And then every 3 hours from 9 a.m. I have meals on that time, because that's what worked for me and it allowed me to create a routine that stopped me falling off track every weekend. Because what was happening was I wasn't training at weekends, or else I was training at weekends and missing meals, and I was still binge eating at nighttime. I normally have my free meal, ice cream or chocolate, whatever it is, with Holly on a Saturday. I call it a free meal. I don't like cheat meal. I don't like the negative connotation that comes with cheat meal. But a free meal works great. And I think anything that fits into your schedule like that, and you've timed it in and you've factored it in, is only going to work great for you. And I love it. I look forward to it every week. We'll watch a movie, we'll play, we'll do something, and we'll have some ice cream and we'll have some chocolate. And it works really, really well for me. So find what works best for you in terms of, should you train at the weekend? Do you need to factor it in? And then time your meals, time your nutrition, time your free meals and everything around it, and manipulate the day to find what works best into your routine, and then make that a habit and do that every weekend. The next thing then is, if you're going out drinking and alcohol at weekends, because what happens with alcohol on a Saturday night, and I fell victim of this because I did this for years in my early 20s, where I went out and trained all week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday night would come. I would go out Saturday night. I would drink 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 drinks. I'd wake up Sunday hungover. I wouldn't be able to eat my meals on Sunday, and then I'd binge out Sunday night, and then I'd go back to work Monday feeling really horrible and rotten. So I'm going to talk about a couple of hacks for anyone that's kind of in that weekend warrior buzz, because it works great. You know, if that's your stage in your life where you're going out every Saturday night and you're enjoying that and you love that and you love the social aspect and you love meeting your friends, then by all means do it and just factor it into your training and factor it into your nutrition. And there's a couple of hacks that will allow you to not fall off as most people do, because what happens is you go out Saturday night, Sunday you're in bed most of the day, you can't eat, then you eat pizza or ice cream that night because you feel horrible. You probably had a takeaway the night before. I was there. You wake up Monday morning, you feel horrible, have no energy. You might pull yourself to the gym, and then you might get back on track Tuesday when your energy levels and your serotonin and your dopamine from the alcohol and the drop starts to come back and balance back out. And then you're back into the swing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then you're back on the same routine on Saturday. So that can set back a lot of progress because you haven't put any systems in place in order to hack getting into amazing shape and then just factoring it in. I have a lot of people come through my online program and I just factor in their nights out on the Saturday night, because you can do that. There is a couple of hacks with drinks you can have, supplements you can take, and systems you can do to minimize any fat gain or any ability to get alcohol out of your body. And you apply those, you're going to give yourself a massive advantage in terms of staying on track with your fitness goals and not getting disheartened because you fall off track every weekend, which is something what used to happen to me. It's why I was able to build these systems. So the number one thing to do is, if you plan to go out drinking on a Saturday night, what I would do is I would factor that in as your free meal, and I'd use that period of time as your free meal. So basically, on the nights that I plan to go out and have a few glasses of wine or vodka or cider or whatever it is that I'm going for, I tend to drop my carbohydrates down slightly that day. And because obviously you're going to get your carbohydrates from your sugar alcohols, you're going to get your carbohydrate and glycogen levels stored up through that. I tend to just drop back my carbohydrates that day. So I'll normally have a lot of meals. I'll normally have carbohydrates in my first meal. I'll normally have my hardest training session on that day. Purely because it makes me feel mentally better when I go out and I'm having a few drinks and I don't feel guilty for it, even though you should never feel guilty for having a couple of drinks or food. I find that I still get that association sometimes, and I just personally feel better having my hardest training session on the Saturday, so I know I can go out and enjoy my drinks on that night and not feel bad about it. So I generally have my hardest training session, which is normally legs or some form of CrossFit or Metcon or finisher style workout. I'll drop back my carbohydrates that day, so it's normally chicken and fish and veg, and then that night I'll go out and I'll have a few drinks or whatever it is I'm having. If you're somebody that gets really drunk really quickly by not having a lot of fats or carbs in their food, I would add fats into that last meal before you plan to go out. You don't need carbohydrates in it. People think you need carbs as soakage, and to a degree it will soak up some of it, but you're better off just having a fat meal, because that will also do the same effect, and it won't do any effect on blood sugars, and it won't overspill your glycogen level stores as much as eating a carbohydrate meal would at that time. So what I would do is, if you're someone that's a really light drinker and find that you get drunk really quickly if you don't have carbs or fats in that pre-workout, in that pre-drinking meal, that dinner meal before you go out, definitely load up on fats on that. So some oils, coconut oil, salmon, fish, oily fish, and then your vegetables will work really well for that. Then what I do is I'll go out, I'll have my drinks. I tend to stay with the calorie saving drinks, because at the end of the day, your body's not as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. So of course, if your maintenance calories 2,000 calories, in theory, eating above 2,000 calories, you should gain weight. Under 2,000 calories, you should lose weight. But your body's not as simple as that. There are other things that come into play: your hormonal levels, your body's natural metabolism, all of these things. But in a general sense, I'd still, for a good rule, is to stay around your calorie maintenance mark, or whatever your calorie intake is at that time. So cutting them from alcohol and cutting back on your calories from alcohol tends to do a lot towards keeping your body around that mark. So things like your clear spirits, your vodka, your Bacardi, and a diet mixer. I personally go with vodka, soda, and lime, because you're only getting the calories from which I think is between 64 calories per shot of vodka or shot of Bacardi, clear Bacardi, and that's, you can add that up. But some people will find that obviously if you start drinking that too early in the night, that you'll get drunk way quicker, and then that can have a whole other host of problems. But things like white wine, again, low on the calorie count, and then your clear and your light beers. When I used to live in the US, they have nearly a light beer version for nearly all their beers, so they're quite ahead of us in that sense. But even here now, cider do a cider light, Bulmers do a lot of cider light in Ireland. The UK have loads of different versions of Bud Light and different Coors Light that you can use that are just nearly half the calories of the normal full carbohydrate beer. And most of the alcohol content is near enough the same. So you still get the same bang for your buck, or near the same bang for your buck in terms of the alcohol kick, but lower calories. So I find keeping on the lower end of scale and the lower calorie scale tends to help a lot when you're out at weekends and out on a Saturday night. Then the next thing on the Sunday, and what I would avoid on a Saturday night, and this sets people back more than anything else, is your fast food and your takeaway after the night out. That is the one thing when I work with people in my online program, and I'm going to educate, hopefully inform people now and give you a bit more information on what happens to your body, and then you can choose what to do with it. It's the fast food, the trans fatty acids, and those kind of foods that tend to be in takeaways, chips, curry cheese chips, pizzas, things like that you crave after a night out. That tends to be the thing that sets people back, not the alcohol. What happens with alcohol, I have a little bit of a love-hate with alcohol, and I have a section of it in my book, that the beauty of alcohol is in the actual chain of energy your body has, in its simplest terms, is your glucose, which is the carbs you've eaten that day, your glycogen, the carbs you've eaten the last few days, and then your body fat. What happens with alcohol is it goes right to the front of the queue. So the next day, you're burning through alcohol as an energy source. So if you've ever gone for a run or training session the day after drinking or having a night out, you feel like you're sweating alcohol. That's because your body's using it as a primary energy source. So I have a bit of love-hate because that works two ways. One, it's a terrible energy source for your body in terms of it's like running your car off water. You'll have a little bit of leftover petrol and it'll go a little bit and then it'll eventually crash. But on the flip side, it also jumps to the front of the queue, so you can burn through it. So provided you do a couple of things like what I'll talk about next, where you do a bit of fasted training or a fasted run, or you drop back your carbohydrates that day, you can get back to that normal energy chain of glucose, glycogen, fat stores faster than, say, trans fatty acids that come from fast food. So if you think of and picture that alcohol, glucose, glycogen, body fat chain, what happens with trans fatty acids and fast food is that trans fatty acid goes to the very back of the queue. So alcohol goes to the front, so you can use it as an energy source, hence my love-hate. You can use it, it's just a terrible source. Trans fatty acids that you get from fast food and hydrogenated oils goes to the back of the queue. Basically, trans fatty acids are Latin, trans is the Latin for opposite side. It's an opposite side hydrogen ion that's in the fatty acid. And what happens when your body consumes that is it doesn't understand what the upside down hydrogen ion is, and it stores it straight towards your fat cells because your body's trying to keep your vital organs safe. So what happens is people will go out on a night out, you'll have your alcohol, which is fine, you'll butt to the front of the queue and you can burn through it the next day, but you'll also have a lot of fast food and fatty acids and trans fatty acids, which now start to add to your stubborn fat stores. That's why people that have been eating fast food for years can struggle to get that last bit of body fat off, because you've got years and years of subcutaneous or visceral fat built up over the organs, because that's where your body shipped it to, because it was trying to keep your vital organs safe when you consume that food, because it didn't understand what it was. It's actually incredible when you see the chemical makeup of trans fatty acids. I have a section of it in the book just to expand on it even more, but that's what sets people back, because you keep topping up those fat stores at the back of the queue with trans fatty acids, where alcohol, you can hack the system by what I'm going to talk about next. So to hack the alcohol that you actually drink and to put your body back onto that normal glucose, glycogen, fat store chain as fast as possible, what I normally do when it's possible is fasted cardio the next morning. I normally find that going for a light run, or if you've got a partner, other things will work great for fasted cardio, but doing that first thing in the morning tends to get your body to use up some of that alcohol that you've consumed the night before as an energy source. You will feel like you're sweating it through. I felt nights like I've sweating cider, I'm sweating vodka, and that's why. But it helps massively to getting your body back into its normal homeostatic state and energy taking state. So what I would do is a fasted session first thing the next morning, whether that's a run, whether that's sex with your partner, whether that's a cycle, whether that's a light gym session or a run or a swim, whatever that looks like for you, doing that first thing in the morning and then getting back on track to nutrition the next day. What can happen because of the reduction in serotonin and dopamine, because of the alcohol in your body clearing a toxin out of its system, you can get really bad cravings for chocolate and ice cream and sweets the next day. So I would make sure that you've got something like milk thistle, which is a liver detoxifying supplement, glutamine, which is abundant amino acid that your body needs to repair its actual gut lining and immune system, and making sure that you're getting all of your blood sugars rebalanced out towards eating your meals every 2.5-3 hours if you're not too sick. But assuming you're taking your milk thistle and getting your liver detoxified, you should be okay for a hangover as well. And then if you need to have your free meal, I'd save it to the last meal of that day so that you don't open the floodgates first thing in the morning and then all the meals for the rest of the day go out the window. But again, this is case by case. I tend to just prefer to keep my alcohol as my free meal, but some people will find that the craving for sugar or ice cream or whatever it is so bad the next day because of the reduction in dopamine and serotonin from the top of your body clearing itself of its of alcohol toxins, that you're better to have it as that last meal so that you don't have it first thing in the morning and throw the rest of the day out the window because you got the first meal wrong. So what I would advise and I would offer people do is try and get that very first meal of the day, whatever that is, protein pancakes, a smoothie, porridge, even if you're making, some form of meat because you want a bit more sodium, I would try and get that first meal on the Sunday perfect, because if you can get that off, you know that you've got your free meal coming later on that night. It keeps it a lot easier to stay on track during the whole day. So that's everything. That's kind of my hacks that I used through most of my mid-20s until I kind of reduced back my alcohol. I had a pretty bad alcohol problem for a while. So I tend to reduce it back now in my life. And I'll only have a couple of glasses of wine. And I tend to not go and binge drink as much as I used to. So there's some of the systems that I use with people in my online programs so that you don't have to sacrifice your nights out and all the things that come with actual life just because you're on a fitness and training program. So hopefully this helped. I hope you guys got loads of value from this. And again, massive thanks to everybody for downloading and listening. The numbers still blow my mind every time I get sent them over from iTunes every month. So a massive thank you again to everybody for downloading. For more information about me, you can head over to www.briankeenfitness.com. And for any information on my BKF 90 program, which is my online program, which is everything you need to get into amazing shape regardless of your goals, a full nutritional plan with different calorie calculations, different recipes that will work into your lifestyle and your schedule, training program based on your specific goals and gender, a beginner, intermediate, pro, home or gym-based workout, again, depending on what works best for your schedule, an online coach, a BKF coach that you'll work with for the 90 days, and a Facebook group where you can ask me questions back and forth. It's the only program that I have that I work directly with everyone in the group, where you can ask me questions directly back and forth in the Facebook group, where we do a Q&A every week. So for more information on that, head over to the website and just click on the BKF 90 link for more information on that, or you can email me at brian@briankeenfitness.com and I'll send you all the information. You can see if it's what you're looking for. And for more information on my Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube, it's all Brian Keane Fitness. And my Snapchat, which is probably my most active platform at the minute, where I open up every day for questions back and forth, is BrianK019. So if you're not following my Snapchat, definitely follow me on there. That's my favorite platform at the minute. And a massive thank you again to everybody for downloading. Thank you to Colm at Voxonic, who puts together all my podcast episodes. Anybody looking to get the podcast done, cannot recommend Colm at Voxonic more for that. So thanks for listening, guys. Catch you soon. Hey everyone, I want to say a massive thank you for downloading this podcast. I hope you got loads of value from today's episode. For more information on my BKF online program, just send me an email, brian@briankeenfitness.com, or head over to the website or Facebook, Brian Keane Fitness, and just send me a message. The online program is everything you need to get into incredible shape. Whether you're a guy looking to build muscle and lose body fat, or a girl looking to drop a couple of dress sizes and just flatten out her stomach, the program gives you everything you need. It's my only online program where I track and monitor the first 50 people that sign up, and it has everything that you need in terms of training, a beginner program, intermediate program, or a pro or advanced for anyone that's at a high training level, and a nutritional plan with everything you need to get into incredible shape. All the recipes, macro calculations, and systems that you need based around your goals. You'll also go into that group where I can work with you and you can ask me questions back and forth, where we do a Q&A every single week, on top of having one of my coaches work with you Monday to Friday throughout the entire 6 weeks. So for more information on that, just send me a message, and thanks again for downloading the episode.